This episode of the podcast is brought to you by LeafWell.
Hello, Cannabinoid Connect listeners. Have you ever thought about getting a medical card? The process can be intimidating and hard to navigate. That's why I've partnered with LeafWell, the easiest and most affordable way to get a medical card in Texas and 32 other states in the U.S. LeafWell seamlessly connects you to a network of doctors that will help you get certified online in minutes. LeafWell is run by data scientists, cannabis specialists, and patient advocates that are passionate about increasing access and education around medical cannabis. LeafWell's patient support team is also there to support you throughout your entire journey using medical cannabis. As I've mentioned, I've partnered with LeafWell to provide all my listeners with a discount to become certified for medical cannabis. Simply go to their website at leafwell.com and use the promo code CCTX to receive $15 off the price of getting a medical card. LeafWell only charges you if you get approved, so what do you have to lose? Visit their website at leafwell.com today and use the promo code CCTX to get certified for medical cannabis. Risk-free. Susie Plascencia, what is going on?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Very excited to be talking with you today. I did listen to some previous podcasts that you've been featured on, and I think I caught. Did you have some family in the Dallas area? Is that right?
I do.
Okay, so and then my next question is, I'm sure then you visited Dallas. So are you familiar with the city at all? Yeah.
I'm not so familiar with the city necessarily, but like I go there quite a bit for my family, to visit them, and I go wherever they take me kind of thing. But I don't have my own like Dallas spots.
No. I hear you. Yeah. My wife and I just moved to the suburbs after I lived there for 11 years in the city. And I
Oh
literally
wow.
lived in like every neighborhood you could think of. And we moved from the like Oak Cliff, Kessler Park area. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it was pretty cool. They had a lot of like awesome restaurants and live music and whatnot. So
Good food out there.
absolutely. Yeah. But you're in California, right?
Yes, I am in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. And I want to get into, of course, your background as a brand partner with Humo Cannabis. But first, let's talk about you. I always ask this question, especially, when I have Latino and Latina guests on, because I grew up, within a Latino household as well. And I always ask the question, like, what's the beef with, the community when it comes to cannabis, right? Like, I mean, it's pretty strict in other households, but like, it's kind of like a don't ask, don't even talk about kind of situation. At least like, for me growing up, I don't know if that's changed for other generations, but what's your experience?
Yeah, it's similar. My experience was very similar. I was very kind of school oriented when I was younger, when I was a kid, high school and everything like that. I was very, very school oriented. So because cannabis in our community was basically lumped with the worst of the drugs, um, I, as a teen, I was like, oh no, I'm on college bound. I'm trying to make something of my life. I can't dip into that at all. So that
Right.
kind of kept me from not wanting to explore cannabis at all because of the perceived notion that that was on the same level of these other, hard drugs.
Right.
So it wasn't until I got older and decided to try it out during the college days, that actually the feeling was relief and stress relief and calmness. And I was
It's
like,
like, what was
wow,
I missing? Right. Like, oh my God, I get it now. Kind of like that epiphany.
it wasn't, and that was the catalyst of really starting to unravel all the lies that we've been told about this plant. And that was really the start of it for sure.
Right. And so from there, I mean, did it kind of take off and you were like, okay, this is the industry and kind of the profession that I want to pursue? Or did you kind of utilize and leverage some skills that you learned maybe in other industries and now apply it to where you're at today?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the latter. I went to school for PR and marketing. I have a
Nice.
degree from USC, and so
Very nice.
I started traditional PR and marketing. I worked for an agency for a while, and then in 2015, I launched my own digital marketing agency, digital PR as well. In 2015, taking on clients and helping them with thought leadership press, doing a lot of story building, branding, that sort of thing. And then it was around the time when I decided to return for my master's degree. I earned a journalism degree from, also went back to USC, and I got my master's in journalism because I really saw the trends in marketing and PR were going to more owned media and really dynamic storytelling. So I wanted to go and earn my master's in something that I could use in any industry, but also help me go deeper in marketing and PR by just having really solid story structure. So
That makes yeah.
after, right? Yeah,
Well,
I think I'm a storyteller at heart. I think all great PR and marketing is a really great story.
yeah, and I mean, I want to just kind of dive into that a bit more because you really have like like you have three different like weapons in your arsenal, if you will, right? I mean, you've got PR, right, which is all about like getting yourself out there, pitching media, placement in media, right? And then you've got the marketing side where you're literally marketing yourself. And then you talk about that third component, which is journalism. And I mean, that in itself is a whole other right profession where you're writing about a story or you're covering some kind of feature or whatever it is. So like how first, I have a couple of questions, but first, how are you utilizing that today? And then I have a specific question about journalism. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean, Umo is such a brand that is just steeped in story. There is a storyline to everything about Umo, from our nostalgic strain names to our events and how we do them. Umo, there is a lot to it, and I think that that's why people gravitate towards it. It's way more than just flour in a bag. It represents a movement that a lot of Latinos are currently undergoing. A lot of us are getting out of the quote unquote cannabis closet and for the first time are being open about our cannabis use. So Umo has become a brand that kind of meets Latinos where they are. Also, because we have a brand that is really great to rep, now more than ever, Latinos are trying to show pride of their cannabis use. So they are looking for clothing to rep and say, hey, this is the brand that I smoke. So it's really been great to see that and providing folks with a brand that they can really truly get behind.
Right. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. Like, first is just how mature the California market is in that, like, branding is so important, right? Because there is this sense of pride among the consumer base of, like, yeah, I want to rep that. Like, I'm into that brand. They speak my language. They're about what I'm about. And Umo seems to really connect and resonate with the Latino community. And why do you think that is?
I think that the approach that I took with building the Umo brand, when you first you hear about us, or even just look at the packaging, we confront the elephant in the room, stigma. From the moment you touch Umo and read about us in the back, we're letting you guys know that we're a mission focused brand. We're here to eliminate the stigma that surrounds the cannabis community with regard to cannabis use. We're celebrating our love of cannabis, and we're being out and proud about it. So Umo really represents that, and I'm really proud to see so many folks that rely on Umo because they feel seen, they feel represented, but it's also great quality flower at an affordable price point, at an accessible price point. And I like to use the word access because when flower is priced expensive, you're not able to access it anymore. That's
Right.
outside of your accessibility. And it's important that we remember that cannabis is medicine for a lot of folks. I still refer to customers as patients in a lot of times because I come from the 215 days. I was a former bud tender back in the day. That had a big impact on me. It had a big
What
impact.
what year was that?
That was 2009, 2010, around there.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So you've been
So
in it
it
for a
was a
while.
while ago. Oh yeah, but I was a bud tender. I was, my late teens, early 20s. It was during that time, and I didn't feel supported as a career. Like it was a career. It felt like a side gig. And now look at bud tenders and it is a full-on career path. If you're a bud tender, you have a path towards becoming a general manager, a buyer, an owner. You could take that experience and pivot it into a brand. There's
Sure.
a lot of opportunity for bud tenders now, but when I was a bud tender, I felt like it was a short-term thing, didn't really feel supported. On top of that, being a woman, a young woman, I didn't feel like I was given the proper training to actually grow in the career. I don't think they had faith in me. Like, oh, let's put some more into her. I think it was just, oh, you're bud tender. We expect you to not be here long, so we're not going to treat you like you're going to be here long. That had a
Mhm.
big impact on me, and I think that part of what I like to do is speak to bud tenders and let them know that they're valued, they're appreciated, what their work matters, and that they have a career path if they want it to be.
It seems like it really fueled like your fire, like within to kind of feel like you're being overlooked in some capacity and like, all right, like I'll show you, right? Like just wait. And I mean, you've kind of done that really at this point where you're at today, starting as a bud tender. And I'm curious, like, what is your relationship with cannabis? So you talked about it from like the professional side, right? And kind of your um how you've kind of rised up the ranks that way. But tell me, like, your like, what's your consumption like? What do how do you use it?
Yes. So I'm very open about my consumption now, which is not the way it used to be. I have a whole social media channel dedicated to my cannabis consumption. It's called Susie Greens. You can follow me, Susie Greens, like the color. And this is my cannabis self, my true self for people who truly know me. I smoke pretty heavily. I smoke every day, often. I have different strains that I use for different purposes. I love the flower. I love the plant. I'm a bong girl because I also own a bong company. So that's my preferred method of smoking. I truly believe that a clean bong with some flour, freshly ground flour, using a wick is the best way to taste a flower. That is the best way to
I
smoke
would
your.
have to agree with you on that. Yeah,
They're
I
just so
would.
good.
And the high, I mean, not to mention it's a bong hit, right? So I mean, you're
Right.
immediately kind of not only tasting it, but you're feeling the effects of that particular strain, the terpene profile, the flavonoids, I mean, everything in it, right?
Everything. That's why it continues to be my go-to. And being launching Mota Glass, my glass brand, I've been able to learn about the bong smoker a little bit differently. It is a particular type of person. They're a little bit obsessive. They like their things. They like to invest in their cannabis use. They're collectors. They clean. Like it's really an interesting world there. But what's great to see is just so many folks like me and consume like me. So I am more on the heavier consumption side. But I think that it's that case now because it's more normalized. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's spreading throughout California and it's spreading among Latinos as well. But my consumption, I was always kind of like more a heavier smoker. However, me being upfront about that is still kind of within the last couple years. And that is because of I was a premier code switcher, to be honest. I was a very professional person and then all of a sudden cannabis smoker. I was very, very
That's kind of like
different.
how I was. That's exactly my background. Yeah.
Identity issues, right? Because
Yeah.
I was brought
Only in
up
the
to think,
workplace though. Only in the workplace.
oh yeah, I was really brought up to think that you had to be these two different people. That
Right.
I could not be a heavy smoker the way I am and present um that I am a professional and present
But
that I'm
wouldn't you
so-
say like it maybe you were raised that way because I kind of was too, but don't you think that's society as well, especially in
yeah.
like in like really long-standing industries, right? Like tech hasn't been around for so long, but it's pretty established at this point, right? So you think about an industry like technology or anything else, you have to act a certain way. There's a certain protocol within HR, right? And did that
Yeah.
bother you? I mean, you were in PR working at agencies, so
Yeah.
uh, what was your experience like with that?
Oh yeah. I'm very protocol oriented. I love a good SOP. Um,
Sure.
but I think that what I didn't like about corporate environments is that I'm a creative. And so sometimes process can affect creativity sometimes. And so I realized that I work best on my own time, doing my own thing and meeting deadlines versus being at a desk and being forced to work 9 to 5.
Right. Right.
That did not work for me. I learned that early on in my career that it was not for me because I don't know, the routine of it all, the getting up in the morning and driving and getting your your
Oh,
coffee. That
yeah.
routine was killing me. It was. And I realized that I drank coffee not because I enjoyed it, not because I liked it, but because society had this routine of what going to work in the morning was.
And having
And I
coffee.
was yeah, and I was living the American dream because I'm a Latina trying to make my parents proud, trying to live that American dream. So I graduated college and I went to work and I got my coffee in the morning and here I am running on this brown liquid every day, sitting at a desk, not inspired, not doing. I didn't know at the time, but not doing my best work because I wasn't passionate. You can be an
Right.
awesome person, but unless you're passionate about what you're doing, you don't truly get to that next level. And that took me some time to realize it. It's just my career path. Um, but it was difficult to code switch, and those identity issues really were tough to deal with because I am 100% professional. I am 100% that corporate person, but I'm also a cannabis user and I also smoke a bunch, and that's okay. And it's okay.
Right, right. You know what I love about what you said is, well, there's a lot. So first is you kind of opened my eyes in my mind in terms of like how far we've come in a short period of time, because I started this podcast in 2020 and that was like my big, okay, I'm coming out of the cannabis closet, right? Because I had just gotten laid off due to the pandemic. So it was like, all right, I'm going for this. Like, we need education. We need to do this. And I need to stay busy and have a passion project, right? And have something that I'm really focused on that adds value. So fast forward, it's 2023. And now you're feeling like you said it earlier, like we're in this moment where it's okay. Like it's okay. And, there's been companies like Amazon and whatnot who have tweaked their policies and it's kind of, they move forward in that direction. So that's all positive and amazing, right? The
Right.
one thing that I think is interesting, that the potential that the cannabis industry has is, I don't think that I don't think it's possible to fake and have the identity switch in cannabis if you regularly consume, because it's an industry about the plant, right? It's about consumption, and there's really no bullshitting if like you and I know we smoke and we want to talk and be real with each other, right? I mean, do you get that feeling? Like, I don't see how it
Yes,
could be corporatized in that
I
way.
think that when I was in cannabis trying to build my network early on, this was before Susie Greens existed, that account. I have my other social media channel, Susie Plascencia, and it has quite a few bit of followers. I did some pageantry early on, and some kind of modeling, so I think I have some following for that as well. But I was going to these cannabis meetings and being like, I'm a PR professional, a marketing professional, I'm a consultant. People would look at my social media and be like, "You don't smoke. We don't. I don't
Oh,
know."
because you weren't like out there like boasting and ripping bongs.
No, I was that person that I was telling you about. I was
Right.
corporate.
But I
Was
mean, at the same
clean.
time, like I guess I understand what you're saying, but I'm like, I don't fault you for that either, because that really wasn't your online brand, right? Like, you really, like, you like to smoke, but were you that open about it, even with your
I
friends and
wasn't.
or like anyone? Like, you were just kind of, yeah.
No.
So you, that's the last thing you do is post on social media about it. So
Right.
those
So then
critics
I'm
should
going.
understand that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it interesting because I some people just didn't. Some people are
Right.
like, you're like a faker, you're a fraud, like you clearly don't smoke. Are you even in this industry? And I'm just like, dude, yeah. Like, what do I have to do? So I created Susie Greens because I was like, screw everything. I'm showing people because this is who I truly am. So
Right,
Susie
right,
Greens started and started just posting what I love and posting about brands and posting this and that. And um I think that I was able to penetrate the community with because of that, because I was being more myself. And I think people in the cannabis industry have this way of like being able to sniff out fakes.
right.
There's some, and I love those people because I'm one of those people. And a lot of those people are my best friends. And the reason why is because we've sniffed each other out in that way. And I think that the way to really navigate this community, the cannabis community, is finding your niche, finding your people in this industry. Because once you find them, magic happens. And that's
Right.
that's what's happened with all my three businesses. I've found my niche, my people.
Right, right. It's so important, right? You got to get your inner circle, and trust is such a big factor, especially in this
Yeah.
industry that's so new. And there's a lot of, I mean, there is a lot of mischievous people out there as well, right? That are just trying
Yeah.
to get a quick buck. So I totally get that. I want to switch gears and talk to you about the journalism side. I'm curious to hear your perspective on that, because you mention you have a master's in journalism?
I do, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So like obviously there's like opinions about journalism today, right? Particularly in the mainstream kind of new corporate news environment. But then
Right.
there's the emergence of like independent journalism. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that. But first, I want to get your thoughts, like, journalism is affected when it relates to cannabis in some ways, right? Because there is a lot of like hit pieces out there and a lot of lobbyists that are, lobbying against cannabis. So talk to me a little bit about what you've seen, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think I had been waiting for thoughtful journalism in cannabis for a while, and then finally it started hitting a couple years ago. Um as a publicist, before, I would read the news and I can kind of sniff out when something is like lobby pushed, or whether it's like someone will sometimes publish a study that is funded by an organization that like is against cannabis, right? And then a
Right,
press comes out on this new study. So
right,
that happens a lot. I think it's more important than ever that everybody has this ability to look at news and actually read it and understand what perspective it's coming from. I think folks tend to sometimes look at the headline and then just kind of go with it, right? That's it. Like, that was just the headline, right?
right.
Well, did you actually read the story? Did you understand who it's from? And actually, like, what message you're trying to get across? So I think it's important than ever that we have that discerning eye when we're looking at news. Also, who wrote it and what publication it's on, right? There are some publications who are more promotional, oriented. And then sometimes it'll be a sponsored post. That's not the same thing as news.
Right.
So I think, it does kind of fall on the reader to really just be more discerning, know what you're reading, and keep an eye on those trusted journalists, because there are some trusted voices where you can grow to trust the news that's coming from them.
Yeah.
So,
I I love that you laid out specific tactics, and I mean that's so important, right? To be discerning and to actually know what to look for, because I think a lot of people out there just don't know, and that's not their fault, because I mean from the
yeah.
offset, these publications should be leading with the truth and kind of doing the right thing. But just to add to some of those tactics, I think another important thing is like discerning between an op-ed and actual published article, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
they can always kind of there's like the lines are a little blurred there, right? Like they could publish an op-ed and not kind of present it as that in a headline on Twitter or hook bait, and then you get in there and you think it's this official published article from this organization, and it's actually just an opinion piece.
Oh,
um
yeah. you got to check to see whether the journalist is a contributor or whether it is an actual staff writer. That makes a huge difference because one could just be like, I'm just talking over here, or one is like, I'm reporting. When someone's reporting, they have to adhere to journalism standards and all of these things that we have to do as journalists. Well, when I was a journalist, and I still write, but I right now I write when I'm inspired. And that's kind of where I do it, and I become a journalist because when I decide to follow, the journalism, the journalism ethics that you have to follow, and that requires looking at both sides. You also can't lie. You got to present facts. You have to source things. Those are all rules and ethics that journalists have to follow. Bloggers do not have to do any of that. They can
Right.
say whatever they want. They don't have to look at both sides, and they can just publish whatever they want because it's free speech, right? Journalists have a lot more rules that they have to adhere to. So make sure when you look at this news, you got to see whether it's a contributor, whether it's actual staff writer, and then you can kind of discern what they're saying after you know who it's coming from.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Another example that I always thought was a little fishy, and I want to get your thoughts on it, is like, a recent study showed, or a recent poll, indicates, like it's so vague, right? Like, so, but I see a lot of like staff. I mean, and maybe I'm wrong because maybe they're contributors, but I see staff writers like kind of just without citing that particular study or source, right? It's just like studies show. Well, which
Which
studies?
study? I
Yeah,
know,
like,
maybe they did a study and it's their study. See, you got to find out.
oh, so that would be the loophole. If they did their study, they could just say a study. Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know what this publication is. I don't know if it's their own
Yeah.
publication, unless they're with a major reputable organization, then they don't have to follow any rules.
Right.
So, it's on the reader to really do the work so that they can sniff that out, because according to studies, that's great. Who's the study by and who paid for that study? And
Right.
who did you sample, right? Like there are times that, marketing, your people always say like the number one brand in America. Who? Like who's voting for these things? I in my life have never voted for things like that. So who gets to say that, Like
Right. Right.
I was never a part of that poll. I didn't vote for your mayonnaise, so I think that we got to be careful when we see these things and really look at the studies and who it's by. Oh man.
Yeah, a pro tip on that one is, I think I've done this before for other companies. I wrote social copy for, and it's like, one of the best. You like, so you're not saying the best, but you're saying like one of the best. So like you're kind of in the middle. It's like
Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. And I
right,
know because I've journalist and then publicist is where you present the side that you want. Journalism, you can't do that. You
right,
cannot you have to tell the truth. So, yeah.
absolutely. And I mean, are you seeing like hope? Is there in terms of like, more positive and educational articles about cannabis? It seems like it. I mean, it seems like, mainstream is really kind of opening up, and it's a topic of discussion. I mean, especially because what is it, like 92% of Americans are in favor of either recreational or medicinal cannabis. So it's about time.
Yes. That's great to hear. See, and that's a good statistic, see, because I bet they do ask and do polls on that kind of stuff. So I trust that one a little bit more.
Yeah,
But
recent
I'm
poll said
very,
that one.
yeah, I know, right? I think that I'm really hopeful to see just some really dynamic journalism on some more storylines that are a little adjacent to cannabis, because cannabis, it exists in life, right? There
Right,
are issues that have to do with cannabis, right? And that's where, you see stories that are coming out with Humo, because we talk about the stigma in the Latino community. That's cannabis adjacent. So I'm here for these cannabis adjacent journalism that's coming. Ultimately, journalists, they're hired and put on a beat when their editor or their company is starting to see that a topic is hot.
right,
So I'm really awesome to see people like Adam Chorn from the LA Times. He's pretty new. He's like in terms of the green room, his show. And the reason why it was created was because LA Times finally was like, we need something to cover cannabis. That didn't happen until readership started coming up and people getting stats that people wanted to learn more about cannabis. Bam, LA
Right.
Times got their whole cannabis channel. So
Right.
that's happening right now. I think as more people start wanting to learn more about cannabis, more and more big companies, journalism publications are going to start having their cannabis beat. So we're running it and we can always, you know, different areas that we want to cover. It's really great to see consumers really want to learn more about the plant to be able to feed their shopping habits. For
Right.
example, with Humo, we're a very terp forward brand. Our flower is grown mixed light, so it uses the full spectrum of the sun, and then we supplement it with LED lighting as needed. We don't just blast it with LED lighting the way indoor does, which leads to a lot of light and water usage.
Right.
Mixed light, it's much more sustainable. But because you're not cutting out the sun, you get that full spectrum and you get that terpene expression. So that's why Humo flower, it's got the THC percentage that people want. All our strains test at or above 30%. Gorgeous looking structure like that people want, good looking flower, but also it is tasty. And because people are tasting this, they want to learn about it. What's up with this? How come it tastes so good? Now, more than ever, people finally know what a terpene is. That did not happen when I was working at the trap shop as a bud tender. People just wanted, what do you got for me? And it was flour in a jar, and I would weigh it out and then give people in their little baggie, and they would give us a donation. The
Right.
Prop 215 days. Now you have customers saying, what is the top terpene of this flower? Can you tell me about the phenotypes? So I love that. That's driving a lot of the content that you're seeing, people wanting it.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, and especially because the Umo brand story leads with, the terpene, right? I mean, the terpene profile with that mixed lighting that you talked about. So it
Oh,
almost, in a
yeah.
way, inadvertently educates the consumer and brings up the discussion because it's baked into the overall message.
Yes, yes. I'm a huge believer in including education in the brand story. That's a big reason why our strain names for Umo, why I give them the names that they have. For example, we have a strain called Masapan, which is indica. Do you know what Masapan is?
I'm like embarrassed because I've heard that word so like growing up, but what does it mean?
I'm sure if you saw it, you'd be like, oh, it's
Masapan?
this, it's a candy. It's a Mexican candy. It looks like a puck. It's about this big, a brown puck. When you lift it up, it just disintegrates into a million pieces. You can never bite it. It basically is just powder.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah,
has
yeah.
a rose on top.
Right, right,
De
right.
la
I
Rosa is called. De la Rosa.
okay.
Mazapan.
Okay.
I'll send you
Masapan.
a picture. You're gonna be like, I know this.
Right.
Basically, it's a candy. It's a Mexican candy that is made with like a peanut dust, basically, and
Okay.
it's mixed in candy, and they make it into a puck. And this strain is called Mazapan because it's a cross with peanut butter breath. And when
Oh.
you taste this, you get the nuttiness, you get the sweetness, and then upon the exhale, you get a little bit of that earthiness. When I tasted this strain, I was like, this takes me back to eating or trying to eat a masapan. I'm telling you, they fall apart on you. You usually just have to eat it all, but it's nostalgic. And I think
Right.
one of the things that Umo's been able to do in our year of being out, we're celebrating our 1 year anniversary, is that we are touching people in the heartstrings in a way that cannabis hasn't done before. I have seen it with my own eyes because I sometimes pop into shops just to see what's up. And I've seen people shopping and they see masapan and they're like, my heart, my heart. Like I grew up
Because they
eating
can
masapan.
relate. You're touching at their heartstrings. I get it. Right, right, right. Yeah, for sure.
But it's important to me because I'm a real cannabis user that I don't just pick cute names because they're cute. The names get across what the strain is, what it's going to taste like. what the experience is going to be, and we want to make sure that we are making people feel seen, represented, but not confusing them, right? So we're still
Right.
selling cannabis. So
Right.
so they all have that in mind.
Well, I'm curious as we wrap up because I mean, obviously you've articulated how you've laid out the brand story and the brand message and how that's resonated. And I want to ask you, like, have you seen an evolution in the Latino community? Because I mean, I can tell you firsthand, like, especially within my own like family, immediate family with my parents, like, same like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, right? Like, it was very, very don't ask, don't tell. Like, that's just bad. Don't even mess with it. And now, like, my dad, like, we'll consume together. I mean, he's in a state where it's legal, right? My
That's sweet.
mom is open to it. Like other family members are like talking about it. So like what have you seen maybe like at a larger scope, right, within the Latino community in California?
I have seen a shift. I think we're still in the middle of it. I think that the Latino community as a whole is going through a moment, right? Bad Bunny's the number one artist globally. You know, I think that Shakira as well making waves. There are so many Latinos coming up in their own respective industries. When it comes to cannabis, Humo is leading that charge. Humo is California's Mexican American owned and women led brand, and we represent what's going on in cannabis, but also what's going on with the world with Latinos just coming up, right? And I think that what's great to see is just so many folks finally having a brand that understands their particular struggle with cannabis as well. Like I mentioned, I call out the stigma as soon as you see the packaging. I want this to be a brand that when Latinos pick us up, it's like, oh, they get it. They're not just selling a brand and forgetting that the war on drugs happened, and the fact that the war on drugs specifically used the word marijuana to target Mexicans.
Right.
And so the impact of the war on drugs for the Latino community, it's a little different. So with Humo, it's important to me as a Latina that we called that out. It's important that our community knows that we understand what we've been through collectively when it comes to cannabis, right? And so it's been great to see the response for it. I mentioned, Humo is very emotional in that way because cannabis is serious.
Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt. Well, hey, I can see the passion and I can definitely understand the story because you've clearly explained it and really appreciate your time, Susie. It's been a pleasure. What do you want to leave the audience with before we go?
Yes. If you're in the California area, come out and taste some Humo at one of our events. We have events going on all the time for Humo, whether it's patient appreciation demonstrations at our retail partners, or there are bong bars that we do every week sometimes, and we just do these events and we post up. As I also own my glass brand Mota Glass, and we have my glass, and then you can smoke the Humo as well. We give people samples, tastings. We have our spin wheel where you can win Humo merch. It's always a fun time. So make sure you follow us on Instagram at get.humo. That's get.humo. That's our main Instagram page where we do all our drops and all of our posts. But our events channel is Humo Familia. That is where we drop where we're going to be for the week. Every week we post these are the events, come out and get some Humo deals, or we post what parties we're hosting for that week. So those are the two channels to watch if you want to get involved and learn about Humo. Humo is now available in over 200 dispensaries throughout California. So if you're looking to pick up Humo, going to our website at get.humo.com, or it's gethumo.com. Sorry, the Instagram is get.humo. Got it mixed up. It's gethumo.com. You can pop in your area code and the nearest shop is sent to you. Like it's super quick to find us. And if you ever go into a dispensary that doesn't carry Humo, just let them know. I love Humo supporters. They're actually known for that. They will go into dispensaries and ask for Humo. I've heard it from buyers. They're like, we have to carry you guys because people keep asking.
That's awesome. That's a
And
great
that
business
right
model.
there is the best. That's what we hope for. so grateful for the support. So be sure to follow Humo there if you're interested in learning about Mota Glass and supporting local Latino glass floors. Check us out at Mota glass and Instagram at Mota_glass. And also, lastly, not least, if you're a Latina and you support Latinas in cannabis, or you're just someone that supports Latinas in cannabis, check out Latinas_cannabis. It's an online community specifically meant to empower, represent, and connect Latinas in this industry.
Boom. You heard it from her firsthand. Susie Plascencia, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you. This was amazing. I can't wait to hear more.
Absolutely. Yes. And thank you all for listening. Bye.